I had a session with her, and all I remember was it was a bit weird because for anybody obviously who doesn't exactly know what's happening in TRE, basically you're lying on your yoga mat on your back like a beetle. Then you're in butterfly position and your legs start shaking. So this is kind of the normal beginners standard formula. So your legs start shaking and your brain thinks, and I'm sure mine did as well at the time, oh my God, this is weird. What's happening? But the feeling I got afterwards was, indescribable. It was like deep, deep relaxation. I know because I found old emails from the time I had the best good night's sleep ever. And this is one of the majority of clients give me that feedback as well.
In today's episode, I'm talking to Sylvia Tillmann about something that might sound a little unusual at first, shaking. But bear with us because this is all about the body's natural way of releasing tension and stress. Sylvia shares how she came across TRE, or tension and trauma releasing exercises, and how it's become a simple but powerful tool in her own life and for her clients. We talk about how stress, whether it's from big events or just everyday life, can get stored in the body, and how learning to let it go can make a real difference to how we feel. If you've ever had unexplained aches or just felt like your body's holding on to something, then this one is definitely for you. So to someone who has never heard of TRE, can you broadly describe it?
Okay, so TRE stands for tension and trauma releasing exercises. And TRE does two things. So first of all, it releases the tension we are holding in the body. And once the tension leaves our muscles, we also feel relaxed. So many people notice that after a massage. It's the mind-body connection. Your muscles relax and your mind relaxes at the same time.
Sounds amazing.
It is amazing.
Yes. And when did you first come across TRE in your life?
It was in 2013. I also practice Jigit and Reiki, and a Reiki colleague of mine was already training, in 2013 in TAE, and she was looking for people to practice in. And I'm like, definitely interested. I want to experience that. And I did. And I had a session with her, and all I remember was it was a bit weird because for anybody obviously who doesn't exactly know what's happening in TRE, basically you're lying on your yoga mat on your back like a beetle. Then you're in butterfly position and your legs start shaking. So this is kind of the normal beginners standard formula. So your legs start shaking and your brain thinks, and I'm sure mine did as well at the time, oh my God, this is weird. What's happening? But the feeling I got afterwards was, indescribable. It was like deep, deep relaxation. And I know because I found old emails from the time I had the best good night's sleep ever. And this is one of the majority of clients give me that feedback as well. Oh my God, my sleep was amazing. Just because, as I said before, when we relax the muscles, we also relax the nervous system, and then you just calm down and rest.
Even the way you describe it sounds so calming. Calm down and rest. That's lovely.
Well, I practice on a regular basis, so
yes, that's true. That's true. So, so you sort of you were a guinea pig then at the time,
yeah.
and then you left it for a while.
Exactly. I know from these emails that I practiced a few times, and then it fizzled out. And now I really wonder why. So either this is my kind of retrospective kind of interpretation, either because I was like, I don't need that. I never experienced trauma. Not for me. And I'm really, really keen always to point out, it doesn't have to be big T trauma. Any stresses we have going through daily life, and I suppose living in the 21st century, that's a lot of stress, leaves a mark on our bodies. And then people struggle with tension headaches or migraines, back pain, shoulder pain, digestive issues, anxiety, and so on and so on. So it doesn't have to be the big T trauma, but I probably dismissed it and was like, well, don't need it. And yeah, I don't know why it fizzled out. Maybe I also, well, obviously didn't understand what it can do for me.
Mm.
But
Yes, in
then
the
when
long
you
run.
fast forward to 2020, and that's the second part of my story, and the pandemic hit, and I was in a very fortunate position because I was on furlough and I was reassessing my life and my career and my heart. I mean, I was very safe here on my sofa in my flat, and my heart went out to all these people on the front line, people who lost loved ones. I mean, people in abusive relationship, because these people went through massive trauma.
Mm.
I mean, some experts even said COVID was a collective trauma. We've all been going through collective
I
trauma. Yeah.
thoroughly agree.
And
Thoroughly.
I'm like, wow, how can I help these people? I mean, I can't just sit here on my sofa. I want to help these people. And I looked into, well, TRE was really the first thing on my mind, funnily enough. Um,
Mm.
and I looked into TRE and it made so much sense because in the meantime, I had also started counseling training, which I left after the foundation training because it didn't do anything for me. I had counseling myself. I wanted to train as a counselor, as a bereavement counselor, and I realized it just doesn't do. I'm not saying it doesn't do anything. There are many people who benefit from
Mm.
counseling, absolutely, but it didn't do anything for me. And but looking into TAE and how clever our bodies are and how the body keeps the score, I was like, I need to learn more. And I signed up for a training, and well, the rest is history. But the irony also is the first person I healed was myself.
Right.
Yeah. So not the world and all these people with big, big traumas, but myself. But I mean, that's, I suppose, a typical story of people in the holistic field of health and healing.
And that was you had back pain, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes, lower
Yeah.
back and hip pain. And I'm the worst person to go to a doctor and check. And I mean, besides, it was COVID, and I was like, well, I deal with it. So I tried the lot, really. I started with breathing exercises. I did online breathing classes. I started or restarted meditation, and I did a yoga challenge. And then I found the official NHS back pain exercises. And I did all that religiously for probably 2 or 3 months. And again, it didn't do anything for me. But then when I trained in TAE, I also remember one of my first questions when I realized, or I mean, I only knew I had back pain. I didn't know what the cause was.
Mm. You
But
didn't link it, yeah.
um, well, tension releasing exercise. I mean, could that help with my back pain? And the answer was, well, if it's tension related, yes,
Yeah.
most likely. I mean, if there's a tumor on your spine, no, definitely not. But up to 80% of symptoms are based on too much tension and too much stress we are encountering. So I was like, wow, that would be amazing. And I mean, somebody asked me recently, I think it took 2 or 3 weeks when I was like, my back pain is gone.
And
And
hasn't come back?
well, it comes back if I don't practice TAE. So, I mean, what I always say, TAE isn't a quick fix. It's a tool you use
Yeah.
for life.
Yeah.
It's like brushing your teeth or taking a shower, and then you have a, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minute TAE practice. And that helps you to release the tension, which has kind of accumulated over the last few days, and helps you to, yeah, calm down. But I notice when I'm traveling and I'm busy and have a different routine, when I don't practice enough, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
why I'm holding the tension, I don't know. Why it's manifesting in my lower back, I don't know. But the beautiful thing is, I don't need to know because my body knows. And my body does the
Yes.
work and gives my brain a break.
It's amazing, absolutely
Yes.
amazing. I mean, it really is. And yeah, I'm sure lots of people listening are at this moment saying, "Oh, Okay, that's interesting because we hear so much, well, particularly about back pain. Back pain
Mm.
is pervasive in society, but often it's linked to things like, sitting badly
Yes.
for too long and so on. And these things all play a role.
Yes.
But if you're stressed while you're sitting badly and you're sitting badly because you're in sort of protective mode in your
Yes.
body, because you're being triggered by the Zoom call that's putting more workload on you, and then you're bouncing from thing to thing, you can see how that is going to impact your nervous system, and then your body.
Yes.
So sometimes it's almost like, well, we do want to look at structurally that you are okay. As you said, you don't want to have something more significant
Mhm.
going on. And it's always worth and important to rule certain things out.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, a lot of people do the ruling out and get nowhere because
Yes.
they're told, yeah, there's nothing, you're okay. And then they say, but I'm not okay,
Absolutely.
which was the position that I was in. So,
Yes.
and part of the reason you're on here is I was thinking, I wish I had known about this so many years ago, because would it have helped me?
Ye
Potentially, yes. And in my situation, when I did a lot of physical work,
Mhm.
but not until I started to do a bit more mental work, uh, surrendering emotions that were I was grappling with, did
Yes.
I start to get better.
Yes.
So it sings to your tune, and it very much, you mentioned The Body Holds the Score, which is a great book,
Yes.
Bessel van der Kolk, that was a pivotal moment in my recovery. I'm absolutely on the same page with the importance
Yeah.
of how our nervous system and brain, the way we see life,
Yes.
affects our body.
Eh,
You talked before.
ca
Sorry, go on, go on.
Very briefly, Wendy,
Yes,
and it
no, go.
also reflects in our language, doesn't it? When
Yes,
I mean, I've got so many clients presenting with teeth grinding. I mean, pain, tense,
yep,
yeah, teeth grinding.
yep,
Um, well, why is that? Because we keep a stiff upper lip and we try and hold everything together. Shoulder pain, you
yep,
feel the weight of the
mm,
world on your shoulder. Of course, you've got shoulder pain. Yeah.
yeah,
And this is the mind body connection. And I mean, I love Bessel van der Kolk in his work because he, as a psychotherapist, which they usually only see that bit, as I learned in my
yes,
counseling training, he
head only,
says
yeah,
we need to take the body into the equation. Yeah. It's
yeah,
not just here. The body
yeah,
keeps the score. And I see that with clients. Sometimes they, um, well, I also maybe should said, well, I said we are shaking, so the legs start to shake in TAE, and sometimes one side of the body or one leg or one arm shakes much more than the other. And then when
mm,
I inquire with the client, I quite often hear stories like, yeah, there I had an injury there, or I had an operation, or my arm was broken. This one rather than the other one. So there's also the physical trauma on the body, which the body is
yeah.
trying to really shake off. Yeah.
And so you talk about trauma,
Mhm.
and at the beginning you said, not just the big T trauma, and trauma
Yes.
is one of those words that it gets used a lot.
Nowadays,
um,
I think 10 years
na-
ago, nobody spoke about trauma.
exactly,
Yes.
and when something gets used more,
Mm.
it isn't always used in the right way. And you described big T and little
Mhm.
T trauma.
Mhm.
So, what would you sort of say is the separation there? Because some people won't really understand what that
Mhm.
means, but also, but particularly, what does little t mean? Because I think the easiest way
Mhm.
to deal with certain things in life that are difficult for you
Mhm.
is to choose to not see them as trauma,
Yes.
because, like you just said, stiff upper lip, let's keep going, brush it under the carpet, up and on. And that's great to be able to continue in life,
Mm.
but it's not great for what that then does to the body. So a bit of a description about the two would be really useful.
Well, it's really useful, but it's also very different or difficult because two people might go through the exact same scenario, and one person says, well, that's life, and shrugs it off, and they are kind of fine. And the other person is devastated and, I don't know, starts taking drugs or numbing the pain in any way. So it's a very, very personal thing. I also feel like, yeah, as I said, 10 years ago, nobody was talking about trauma. Now everything is trauma. And this is also not helpful. And somebody, I think it was Gabor Mate in a recent talk. He said, we have all experienced trauma. Just some of
Yeah.
us are aware, and the others aren't.
Yeah.
Maybe aren't yet, which I wasn't yet. Yeah. But
Yeah.
and he also says trauma is not what happened to you, because this is something that happened, that is the past, and we can't change that. But what happened inside of you as an effect of it. And he describes trauma as a wound, and a wound can heal if you have the right methods and the right support. You can heal this wound and make it just, yeah, easier to deal with in retrospect, and not to have these symptoms or this addiction. And then, some people then even go through post traumatic growth and grow from this
Yeah.
experience. So it's a huge topic.
Mm.
So yeah, but if you want to nail me down, I always see things like, if somebody has gone through a war scenario, or death of a spouse, or a really nasty divorce, or yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
sexual trauma. There is so many big things which I fortunately haven't gone through. But I lost my brother, my father, when I was very young. Well, very young, in my 20s. But it made a huge impact on
Yeah.
our whole family. I'd never describe that as trauma, whereas other people might. Yeah,
Yeah.
for me it was like, well, yeah, parents die even young and get ill, and so on and so on.
And as you say, so it's more what you're left with, and it's
Yes.
whether you're left with, it's how deep that stays within you, and whether you're aware that
Mm.
that's left with you, because often you may potentially feel like that's dealt with. You've perhaps had therapy, or
Mhm.
you've had done other things. You've just done a lot of processing yourself. You've talked it well, and you think it's in the past. But what you don't know is that it definitely is, because it's one of those, as I talk about the onion skin layers of life that build up.
Yes.
You don't know how thick that layer is. Is there still a bit of scar tissue on that layer
Yes.
that's then restricting the outer layers or the inner layers to be moving freely?
Yes,
But then,
raises its ugly head, and then it pops up here and here, and in your relationships, and in your whatever,
yeah,
eating patterns or disorders. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. And you don't quite realize that that's potentially the root.
Yes.
Um, and then the other side of the coin being the, as you called it, small t
Hmm.
trauma. So we discussed the pandemic.
Hmm.
I mean, I have a vivid memory of my first time going to a supermarket, waiting in a queue
Yeah.
outside,
Yeah.
the circles on the floor of the spaces, wearing, as high protection and mask as I could, walking around. I remember feeling my pulse rate being incredibly high,
Hmm.
because I was so scared through the lack of knowledge of what on earth was going on, and kind
Hmm.
of this whole environment. How can we get through that and not think that those very strange situations haven't had an impact on us
Yes.
collectively, for
Yes.
sure. But
Yes.
then going into normal life, what would you say are some sort of common signs for people that they are potentially storing some low level trauma in their bodies? So you discussed a few symptoms, but if you can describe them a bit more.
I would just say stress in general, really. Um, an example I've experienced myself. I was teeth grinding, well, which I wasn't aware of. Um,
Yeah.
it was at the beginning of my career, and yes, it was stressful, but I didn't see it as stress. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm having the time of my life. It's just so good, and I'm traveling, and I'm doing, and whatever." But I had toothaches, and went to my dentist, and my dentist was like, "There's nothing wrong with your tooth, but or teeth. But I can see your teeth grinding. Are you stressed?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm not stressed." And then I also remember I went back and told friends, and I said, "I can't believe that every time a doctor doesn't know what's wrong and what's the cause, they blame it on stress."
Mm.
Well, now I know this dentist was totally right,
Yeah.
but I didn't
Yeah.
see it at the time. And that's what I mean. So it could be the small things which you don't even necessarily see as traumatic. It's stress at work, maybe in a relationship, maybe the pressure of childcare, and whatever's going on in your life. And
Yeah.
you're kind of constantly running, constantly on edge, constantly close to exploding, and wouldn't say, I mean, I wouldn't describe that as trauma, but it's big stress. And the
Yeah.
stress, yeah, manifests as tension and as symptoms.
And that stress on the body,
Mhm.
basically. So it's like we're running on empty a lot, and we're literally running on empty. We're going so fast, and the body, it needs sleep. It needs
Yes.
deep sleep
Yes.
to relax well.
Yes.
But through the day as well, it needs periods of rest, particularly dependent on how high that. And I think there's also this, from my world, the pressure to exercise, and you've
Mhm.
got to get your exercise minutes in, and you've got to be really, really active. But if you're not responding to what your body's telling you
Mhm.
need, then on an overly pressurized system, you're then adding stressful exercise on
Yes.
top of that.
Yes.
You're actually adding to your load of stress and wondering why,
Yes.
I'm doing the running, I'm doing the thing, and
Yes.
yet my pain is, I'm doing the exercise. Why is
Yes.
my pain so bad? And it's because the body hasn't got the time to release
Exactly.
and to stress. And I think what's really interesting about the whole idea of TRE is that we've talked about all the things it can be
Mhm.
that's creating this in your body,
Mhm.
probably more to convince people that it probably affects most people, um, at some point in their life, at least.
Mhm.
But more to say that the nice thing is you don't actually have to know what that thing is. You don't have to
Mhm.
identify that it's this that happened when I was whenever, or this that's happening now. You just have to know that you're not right. or or as in your position, that that if you do this preventatively,
Mhm.
you can actually ensure against getting back into pain or more problems. Just taking a quick pause because I want to tell you about a new offer exclusively for listeners of this podcast. If you'd like to improve your mobility, strength, and learn more about moving well in daily life now and to train for your 90s, come and move with me in the Reclaim Movement membership. There's weekly live coaching in term time with hundreds of replays available, as well as hordes of 5 and 10-minute mini movement videos to follow throughout your day. I'm offering you a 15% discount on your first month's membership on top of the 7-day free trial. Go to reclaimmovement.co.uk/membership to create your account and quote the code podcast15. Let's move together to feel better and keep doing all the things you love. And I think that's what's the lovely thing, because some people don't want to go there. Some
Yes.
people don't want to open the can of worms that's too
Yes.
painful for them, and perhaps
Yes.
don't know that there'll be a benefit at the end of that, but also do want to have more freedom and ease in their body, and sort of be more relaxed.
Yes.
Um,
Well,
so
and
tell us a
pain
bit more. Go on.
free, exactly, pain free,
And be pain free.
less
Yeah.
anxious, better relationships. Because when you're nervous, I mean, I always say the key to almost everything is a well regulated nervous system. So
Yeah.
once you are calm and composed, and you're not like on edge and kind of exploding in any, yeah, scary or yeah, unpleasant situation, you have better relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the world in a better way. You build more resilience. It's just really being, well, your ideal self, I suppose.
Yeah, and happy. You're probably more content and happy within yourself because
Yes,
you're facing life in a probably more positive way, or at least
yes,
just on an even keel, not
yes,
feeling like you're sort
exactly.
of fighting against it all the
Yes,
time.
constantly looking for
Mm.
danger. What could go wrong? Where is the tiger coming from? I mean, it's all, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So tell us more about an actual TRE session, because I think probably people have got questions already saying, well, what
Uh,
do you actually do? So tell me a bit about how you get into the session, so that someone is sort of ready, how long it takes, just what they experience.
Somebody who's ready, that's a very, very good point, Wendy, because to me, I see my clients as people who want to take ownership of their health. I've spoken to so many people who said, "Oh yeah, that sounds good. And I have regular migraines or whatever. But yeah, I pop a pill and then I take 2 days in a darkened room." If this person is happy with it, fine. I don't convince anybody. But if somebody says, "Well, I've done that enough and I don't want to pop
Mm.
pills," or other people with especially back pain are like, "Well, I'd rather see my physio because my physio, they have always sorted me." Fine, if you are happy. Yeah,
And then why do you need to keep going back?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, my prime example is always I've worked with a woman who saw her physio twice a week and her chiropractor once a fortnight. Imagine not just the money, but the time she's spending getting there, waiting, having the session, making the next appointment at the front desk, whatever, driving home, and so on and so on. Now she has the tool and she can do that in a few minutes. Well, every other day, every I mean, how often? It's very different how people feel
and
they want to
and just
practice.
And just to be to express that more clearly, she's doing that on her own.
Absolutely.
You've taught her the method,
Yes.
you've held her hand to learn the method,
Yes.
and now she has that tool for life.
Exactly. Exactly. So I always say, Wendy, I teach, I don't treat my clients. And that's going back to, yeah, I work with people who really want to take their health and well-being into their own hands. So that's the first prerequisite. And then obviously, I mean, I offer fact-finding charts so they can talk to me and see if TAE, well, can meet their expectations. And if they want to go ahead, I have a health questionnaire because I want to know what is, I mean, are there medication, were there any operations, surgery, just to get a bit of a health background. And then we meet. I teach mainly over Zoom, and in the first session, it's no starting before we do 6 warm-up exercises. These 6 warm-up exercises are just really to arrive in the space and to fatigue the muscles a wee bit, because when you have, yeah, exhausted your muscles and they are tired, it's just easier to get into the tremoring process.
Right.
Everybody
Okay.
can tremor because it's our most innate reaction to stress. I mean, we only know that from like really, really extreme situations, like after a car accident, you see people leave their car and their knees are wobbly.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize it from if you've had one of those sort of near miss situations in the car, the
Yes,
adrenaline surged, and
yes,
once it leaves, you haven't got the power anymore for sure.
yes,
It's there, and
yes,
if you don't get rid of it, yeah, it's
yes.
still there.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's our body's way of dealing with this huge stress, burning off the stress hormones the body has produced. But we've been socialized out of this very innate process because what is the brain telling to the body? Like, don't be ridiculous, don't show vulnerability, don't
yeah,
shake. Yeah. be like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
because shaking in our, well, 21st century is seen as a sign of weakness, of
You're
illness.
making me want to shake
Yeah,
now. I feel like
absolutely.
feel like
Absolutely.
wriggling.
Absolutely. But
Yeah, no,
I
you're
mean, it
right.
has all these negative connotations, and it's all like, no, no, we don't do that. We don't show that we've kind of lost control. But in very extreme situations, like after the car accident, or many women postpartum, the body then overrides the clever brain and says, no, let me shake. I need to get that out of the system. And this is healing. But then in
Yeah.
TAE, we can obviously give the body retrospectively the opportunity to get rid of the tension and shake it off.
And I don't know if it was you in a
Mhm.
previous conversation or someone else saying that we can see it in animals. So when an animal has a flare up, a trigger moment in the
Yes,
wild
yes,
the onslaught of, perhaps being eaten, and if they
yes,
escape,
yes,
their natural reaction is to shake, to release
absolutely.
away that trauma.
Yes.
And we're no different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Every mammal is genetically encoded to get rid of stress in a way. And we also see that in children. Children still do it. But once they then
Mm.
hit puberty, they are too self-conscious. And then again, the brain
Yeah.
overrides the body. And we don't have to, I mean, there's so many videos online where it's about the gazelle or the polar bear, and then they shake and get, but I mean, just day to day, look at a dog encounters a scary situation,
Mm.
and then life is good again.
Yeah. Off they
But
go.
they
Yeah.
kind of process that through the shaking. Shaking is one of the oldest medicines on earth. Yeah,
Wow.
that's also, I mean, but
Yeah.
when, I mean, I'd like to tell my younger self that when I was like, well, that's also a bit odd. But yes, I mean, we don't lie on the floor like a beetle and shake on a regular basis. But back to the session, because you asked me how that works.
Yes.
So we do these 6 warm-up exercises, which are very similar to yoga exercises, or we have this wall sit where you really put pressure on your thighs, and then it makes the tremoring process a little bit easier. And after these warm-up exercises, the client lies on the yoga mat on their back, and I guide them through a grounding meditation, because the most important thing in TAE is that you feel safe and grounded. If you don't
Right.
feel safe, your brain interferes and
Yeah.
doesn't let the body do, because the shaking process itself is involuntary. The only way we can control is we stop it by stretching out our legs. But you can't say, or but I've seen that on video, on YouTube or on my website, seen this person shaking in that way. That's what I want to do. No, every person shakes differently, because every person stores the tension somewhere else. Um,
So when you talk about the meditation, so they're doing the exercises
yes,
to sort of fatigue the muscles, then they're doing a laid down meditation
yes.
for a few minutes, or how
Yeah,
long is that
yeah.
stage?
I
Mm.
ground them. I guide them through a
And
two
is
three
that you
minute.
talking to
Yes,
them? Right. And then
yes.
and when they're on their own, they're doing a similar thing, or
They
just trying to
can.
clear
Many
their
many
thoughts.
people don't, because when I teach, it's the first time they encounter TAE. So I really want them to feel
Got you.
obviously safe and grounded. Once your body knows what is
Yeah, what's
happening,
coming. Mm.
and they know what you expect, they don't
Yeah.
have the grounding meditation. But that's the way I teach, to make sure the person feels safe, is grounded, and their brain doesn't get in the way. And then we do the actual shaking. And as I explained, you put the feet sole to sole, your knees kind of come out, fall out to the either side, and then you slowly bring your legs together. And at one stage, they start to tremor.
And
And
it's involuntary.
this is involuntary. It comes from the brainstem. So that's the reason why we can also talk while the person is tremoring, because the talking comes from our cognitive brain. Yeah. And then sometimes, and often, the person only tremors for half a minute or a minute because we don't want to overwhelm the system. I've heard it so many times or seen on forums where people say, yeah, I tried TRE and I tremored for 10 minutes and I felt rotten afterwards. Well, of course you did, because you were
Yeah.
overwhelming your system. We can re-traumatize somebody if we do it too long. So the big mantra is always less is more. It's like I always say, it's like you have a fizzy drinks bottle, and when you shake it and you open it, the whole mess comes out immediately. And that's with our bodies as well. You give the body the opportunity to shake it off, and you shake everything off, and this is just too much and too overwhelming. But if you have the bottle and you open it a little bit and wait, and open it a little bit and wait, there's no mess and no spillage, and your body exactly in the same way. So you slowly introduce your body to this new sensation. Well, it's a new sensation also. It's so innate, but obviously we've only done that in an extreme, situation. So that's why I'm saying many clients in the first session only shake for half a minute, or a minute, depending on, I mean, some obviously longer, but that's why the health questionnaire is so important. I want to know what's the trauma history. And always, obviously, I'm holding space while they are doing that. I always check in. How do you feel? Are you still breathing? What do you notice in your body? And so on. And we take breaks in between as well. And then afterwards, we have what we call the integration phase, where you just be on the mat and feel like, I mean, generally people feel like super relaxed, like after a spa treatment. And the most difficult bit then is to get off that mat and
Up.
face the real world again. And then in sessions 2 and 3, ideally I teach over 4 sessions. In sessions 2 and 3, we just build up the tremoring confidence, and I'm still there kind of for hand holding and being there and reassuring that it's going well or need to
Mm.
adjust. But then the person is really more like, yeah, that's how my body reacts, and that's how it goes, and that's how it feels. And now I'd rather take a break. So they are much more confident
In
in
tune.
practicing themselves. Then they go away for 4 weeks and come back afterwards. And I then help them to get the most out of the process. So they tell me, I'm always shaking still in my legs only, or I want to, whatever, bring the tremoring up in any way so I can help with interventions to get the most out of the process. And this is really it. That's the teaching and the tool. And then my clients, do that on their own.
Amazing. And how does it, but given that the tremoring is
Hmm.
involuntary, are they, how do they stop it? Do they stop it themselves? Do they, at what time do they stop it? You know,
Yes.
how do they
So
know it should come to an end?
that's what I said. The only thing we can control is to stop it. We can't say, I want to tremor in this way or that way or with this arm and not the other arm. That is nothing we can control. But as soon as this person on the mat stretches out their legs, the tremoring magically stops.
Okay. So
And then
that's like the break.
it's really my job to check in with my clients to see, can they tremor a little bit more? Or, I mean, my mantra is always really less is more. We don't want to overwhelm the system, let alone re-traumatize somebody.
Yeah. Okay. And tell me a bit about the if you have sort of case histories,
Mhm.
people who've come back to you and told you, even within the 4 weeks, but also on a longer basis, what it's done for them.
Um, quite often it's the opposite. It's more like immediately after the session. So to give you an example, I worked, and this is on my website. I worked with a journalist who was so sorry on the website. She was from Women's Health magazine, so your listeners can look that up. And she was only, as I described, tremoring for a minute max, and then she had the integration phase. And later on, she was like Sylvia, how does it happen? I only tremored for a minute in my legs, and I feel like my face is feels lighter, feels more relaxed, and it feels like I just had a facial. And she said, and I wasn't even aware how much tension I'm holding in my jaw.
In her jaw? Oh, wow.
Exactly. Because this was her default and her normal.
Yeah,
Stiff upper
yeah,
lip, and you need to, yeah, hold it all together. And then afterwards she's like, but I noticed that I'm not holding all that here. I mean, she noticed a
yeah.
visible difference after just a minute of shaking.
Wow.
I've worked with a woman. I will always remember her. She came in. That was an in-person session. As I said, generally I teach online, and she was really nervous. I mean, she didn't know me. She had anxiety issues. She had digestive issues because, again, it's the brain gut
Yeah,
axis, and all her anxiety manifested as, yeah, IBS and gurgly
yeah,
gut. And she nipped to the bathroom 3 times before we even started, and was really, and then she was on the mat, and after the grounding meditation, and after she, or while she was shaking, she's like, Sylvia, my tummy feels different. I've really noticed it's calmed down. And
wow.
I'm always like, still, I've taught so many people, I'm always like blown away. And I'm like, this is you doing that to your body. I'm only
Yeah,
teaching you safely. Yeah, but
yeah,
you can. I worked with a woman with ME and fibromyalgia. She, every session we met, she's like, Sylvia, I don't know if I can do that today. I'm so exhausted and I don't have
yeah,
the energy and I'm in so much pain. And I'm like, well, you lead. You tell me how much you can do. We do some warm-up exercises. If it's too much, we leave it. She did all the warm-up exercises. She was tremoring. Next session, she fed back. Sylvia, I was pain-free for the rest of the day.
oh my
And I'm like,
goodness.
"Oh my god, this is
Well,
just
and that's a
so
gift.
good."
It's a
Exactly.
gift. It really
Exactly. It's
is.
a gift we all can give to
Yeah,
ourselves. Absolutely.
yeah.
But
And,
as I
you
said,
know,
it's only for people who are like, "Yes, I know I can do that. Yes, I want to take ownership."
yeah, yeah. The more open and expansive
Mhm.
mindset. And that can still be in place when you're in pain, when you're in discomfort.
Absolutely.
Because we all know that it's not always about sort of feeling like the victim or whatever
Mhm.
that can create these things. You can things As we said, you don't cannot even be aware of what it is that's affecting you,
Mhm.
and yet it can have such a
Yeah,
profound effect. And so for
absolutely.
someone going forward then, how much would you recommend that they would practice this?
Again, we are all different and we are all
Personal.
unique. I mean, I myself like to practice every other day. I mean, ideally every day. I play a lot of tennis. I notice my back after tennis. And then my first thing when I get home is ideally get on the mat and shake it off.
Yeah.
Um, I have clients. I worked with a woman once who said, Sylvia, I just had an argument with my husband. Ideally, I don't want to talk, I want to shake. I need to get that out of my system. So she then, I mean, that's a prime example, rather than
Yeah.
like exploding, or grabbing the glass of wine, or the whatever thing you take to mask your annoyance. She just said she needs to go on the mat. I have other clients who only use it as in when. But I mean, like everything, I mean, I mentioned brushing your teeth and taking a shower. I mean, obviously, the more regular you do it, the more benefits you get.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always say, tremor or practice for 2, 3 minutes every day, every other day, rather than for half an hour once a week. because you're always like, oh, I need half an hour to squeeze that in as well. And then you probably don't do that because you don't find that half an hour. But whether it's in your lunch, I mean, I even tremor in meetings, and I can teach people how that works when you're sitting down. Yeah. And
Really?
you just move your leg. People might think you've got restless legs. So, I mean, yeah,
Fine.
yeah, but you use the time and give your body this
Yeah.
outlet to just do it. So, I mean, as I said, this is not a prescriptive, you need to tremor. And also what I described as a warm-up exercises, once your body knows how to get into the tremoring, and that is normal, and that is just, yeah, something your body's used to, you don't need these warm-up exercises anymore. So that saves you another 20 minutes, 15, 20
Yeah.
minutes. Or people combine that. I mean, I even have clients who said, oh, I do that in the gym. I work out and then I lie on the floor because my muscles are
Yeah.
warm and exhausted. And then I tremor on the gym, whatever the people are thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was actually thinking that myself from the point of view of, yeah, if you have, because often if you have done some kind of workout afterwards, you go
Yeah.
to do something and you can feel your body is fatigued and your
Mhm.
nervous system is a little bit spent. What better time? Because, that's like the most deep stretch or rest you can do afterwards to try and help reset, because even exercising is a stressor on the system.
Depending
So
what you
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Depending on what you do. Exactly, exactly. Yeah. No, it's
Yes.
it's so fascinating. It really, really is. And I think, one of my questions had been about to someone who's skeptical about it. And I
Mhm.
think, you've answered that through and through by saying that, the skepticism is actually going to be a hindrance.
Mhm.
You need to be willing to think that this is a possibility for you.
Mhm.
But knowing the physiological factors, the fact it's been used in history for so long that we see it in
Yes.
the animal kingdom, I don't think you need the evidence beyond that, to be honest,
Yeah.
as well as hearing your amazing case studies, as it were. That
I mean,
it's
some
just
people
superb.
obviously, when they're in the brain, they want to know why and what is happening. Absolutely fine. But I always say the proof is in the pudding. Yeah, you need to be on the floor and get that feeling of deep, deep relaxation and
Yeah.
noticing the pain leaving your body or the anxiety easing. And I always say there's so many modalities where we can really relax and work in a somatic way. But I really think TAE is the only one which is so innate.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is for me, this is the unique selling point really.
Yeah.
Also, I never sell
Absolutely.
it because the person needs to be ready and needs to be willing. I mean, I wouldn't talk anybody into it because I mean, you know that from your work, it doesn't make sense at all.
No, and referring things like that they rarely work. It has to
Yeah.
come. The person has to
Yeah.
feel the connection, the resonance
Yes.
that this is for them. But I defy you to listen to a conversation like this and not think I'm intrigued, because the evidence is there, quite
Yes.
frankly. So
Yes. And I mean
yeah,
the history of TAE, and that's I suppose where the big trauma element comes in, was when David Berceli, who created TAE, he worked a lot in war zones, and he worked with hugely traumatized communities and saw the
right,
results. And then he returned to the United States and worked an awful lot with war veterans who were presenting with PTSD. And again, he noticed the difference because the trauma they experienced isn't just here.
no,
Yeah,
far from it.
it's in the
Yeah,
body. And again, he saw all these results. He works a lot with firefighters,
right,
police,
yeah,
and so on
yeah.
and so on. Yeah.
And I think that regularly on this podcast, the conversation comes around to the importance of seeing the whole being,
Yes.
not separating out mind from body.
Yes.
And you kind of feel like, we're coming back to it over and over. There must be a reason for that. All roads lead to the fact that one absolutely one may be controlling the other, but it's the other way around as well. And the sooner that we embrace being able to tune in to what our body's telling us is happening, not optimally in our heads, how we're seeing life, how things have affected us, and understanding that is a clear signal and a message, then the easier it is to be able to move past it with modalities like this, and other things as well.
Exactly. And can I also add, it's a very, very Western approach to see mind and body as two different parts. Everybody
Yeah.
else in the world, especially these so-called primitive communities, which are not at all primitive because they have much more wisdom than we
Yeah.
do. Yeah. They've known and acknowledged it all the way, and they work with
Yeah.
mind and body.
Yeah.
It's just, and I mean, it's just an alien, well, for them, an alien concept that we are up here and down there. And this
Yeah.
is, well, it's not helping us, is it?
No, and it's not helping us sort of medically, in the medical world, to have everything separated out. And I think that's why a lot of people then have to look more holistically and
Yes.
look for different things, such as you're offering. Well, listen, it's been absolutely fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for coming on, Sylvia. And I'm sure
Thank you.
you'll have a few people knocking on your door after this. But also they can read more. So we will be linking to your website in the show notes. What you said about the founder of it and his work, that's fascinating. So if people
Yes,
wanted to read more, I'm sure we could link to that as well.
absolutely. And I'm here
But
to show everybody how amazing tremendously amazing our bodies are. Absolutely.
and I think one of the best things about this is also that, oftentimes people will come on with a solution that perhaps is something that they need to keep going to someone else for. What you're doing is you're giving someone a gift, you're helping them, you're showing them, you're being the catalyst, and then they take it off themselves and they have that skill for life. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah. I'd say uncovering the gift, because the gift is within us. Yeah. And I just show them to rediscover safely how to heal and help themselves. Absolutely. Well, you got it, Wendy. Thank you. Some people don't necessarily get it, but you definitely.
I definitely get it. I definitely get it. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Sylvia. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you likewise. And thank you for the invitation, Wendy.
I hope you've enjoyed listening. And if you have, you can help by doing 3 things. First, press the follow button to tell podcast platforms you want to listen again. Second, please give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review about why you liked it. And third, I'd love you to share it with friends and family or on your socials, for which I'm truly thankful. Finally, if this podcast is making you want to start reclaiming your own movement, join me in the Reclaim Movement membership for classes, both live and by replay, and countless videos of mini movement breaks to add into your daily life, covering practical and fun, important natural movements. Visit reclaimmovement.co.uk/membership to get started with your 7-day free trial. See you for the next episode, and thank you so much for listening.